And then when Fear Factory first came out, we were definitely lumped in with all the grindcore, death metal bands because that's pretty much what we sounded like. But you heard that there was something different in Fear Factory when it first came out. And one of the things that really stood out, not just the syncopated guitars and drums, but the vocals. Here
Hmm.
we got Barney style growls mixed in with like these beautiful melodic gothy type vocals.
As far as I'm aware, that's, I call that like good cop, bad cop vocals. As far as I'm aware, that's the first time anybody did that, at least that I ever heard.
I've heard people do like a song where it's all melodic, or a song that's all heavy, or like somebody will throw in like a midsection where a guy stops and sings melodic for a second. But there's never been the combination of the two really in a song that that is the song. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Yeah, and I've seen Loudwire. They did a documentary where they interviewed all these other artists, and a lot of them were saying they were talking about 1994 that they were doing melodic stuff, and they did it first, and blah blah blah. And I was like, well, you're forgetting Fear Factory.
Oh
You
no,
know,
yeah, I would definitely say it's Fear Factory.
yeah. And that's one of the ways that I think we were very groundbreaking as well. And then, you know, we got a lot of crap from the death metal grindcore crowd because they didn't really understand the melodic vocals.
Because clean vocals are gay.
Clean vocals are gay. People still say that today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know people who purposely try not to do clean vocals. You know,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, we got a lot of crap for that. But at the same time, we got a lot of attention for it.
Hmm.
So by the time, and then in 1993, we released the remix version of Soul of a New Machine, which was like death metal techno with melodic vocals.
Also, the only other band I can think of that did anything like that back then was Brutal Truth. I think they did like that one song. Um, but that was another one of those things like super, super ahead of its time, which may not seem, it may be hard to appreciate now what a like kind of wild idea that was to do like techno remixes of these like death metal songs.
Yeah, and it was just an idea that I had just because I was into the backyard scene of the backyard DJs playing techno stuff, and I was like, well, I like that stuff too. What would it sound like if we combined the two? So Monty Connor at Roadrunner Records introduced me to Reese Fulber, who is the keyboardist of Frontline Assembly. And
Right.
that was the merger between, you know, that's our style, his
Hmm.
electronic style, our metal style. That was the merger. 'Cause that was the vision that I had the whole time. And when it when it worked, we're like, boom, we went in right away and did demanufacture.
Yeah.
And that was the birth of what we became.
I think also another really important thing that Fear Factory kind of pioneered was that style of production, like the Colin Richardson kind of mix on there. Like that was
You're
one of the
wrong.
very first, like
You're wrong.
super, super clean, crisp, punchy kind of mixes the way we think of them now.
Okay, you're wrong. Colin Richardson did not mix the record.
Who did?
We actually fired Colin during the mixing of the record
Who mixed it? But
because he
his
didn't.
name is on it, right?
Yes, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. So I'm not wrong about that at least.
Well, it says produced by Colin, doesn't say
Got it.
mixed.
Okay.
That's it. Um, well, during the mix, we didn't see eye to eye on Colin because he was kind of burying the keyboards, and it wasn't coming out the sound that we wanted. So Reese Fulber, again, who played all the keyboards on the record, he was like, I know this guy named Greg Greeley, who's mixed the Frontline Assembly records. He's mixed a bunch of other different types of bands in that genre, and he also mixed our remixes, Fear is the Mind Killer. So I was like, you know what? So I had to convince the record company to let me fire Colin and to give me more money to get Greg Reilly and Reese Fulber into Los Angeles to mix the album. And it took a lot of convincing, but it worked. And my idea worked. And so we
Hmm.
brought we brought Greg Reilly and Reese Fulber to LA. They started the mixing on the record. If anybody wants to see the mixing of that record, they could go to my Patreon page, Patreon Dino Cazares, and you could see there's a 3 series of like 4 different songs where you can hear us mixing that album. And
Someone drop if for anybody watching on Twitch right now, if someone wants to drop a link in the chat, that would be cool. The Dino's Patreon.
yeah. And so, yeah. So, I literally started to cry after we mixed the first song. I was like, fuck. And that was Zero Signal.
Okay.
I
But
was like,
so, well, regardless of who did it, like that mix to me is like the first really like modern metal mix the way we think of it now.
correct. It was definitely ahead of its time. We were, sampling drums at that time. We were putting the keyboards in the forefront. We were editing all the noises out that were, in the guitars or bass
That
or
like
whatever.
super tightly gated sound that everyone uses now.
Totally. Yeah, it definitely set the standard.
Yeah, I mean, you
So,
listen to, I mean, especially like even as early as like Soul of New Machine, but I would say like to me the vision really came together on Day Manufacturer. I would say it was there earlier, but like that's where it really came together. Like you think about what modern metal is now, and there's like so much of it was like pioneered on that album. The mix, like you said, the arrangement of like the kicks and the syncopated guitars, like your guitar tone, the good cop bad cop vocals. I mean, it's like really is the template for pretty much everything we think of as modern metal now.
correct. And when we
Down
went,
tuning also.
yep, down tuning. Yeah, I was doing the down tuning thing way back. Being influenced by Godflesh and a lot of the early Carcass, and tuning their guitars down to B and stuff like that. So I was really into it back then. And yeah, every band I was in, we tuned down.
Yeah. Well, so how do you feel? Kind of. I mean, it's not that you don't get any credit, but I don't think you get as much credit as you probably should. Is that a sore spot for you, or just kind of the way the cookie crumbles?
Um, it's a little bit of both. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say it's a sore spot, but it does. A lot of people, when we don't get the credit for the good cop bad cop, yeah, that's a bigger sore spot, right?
Okay.
And then like the syncopated guitars and drums, a lot of people credit Meshuggah because Meshuggah, they discovered Meshuggah in 2008,
Yeah.
2008,
Yeah.
2010,
Exactly. When
right?
Obscene came out.
Sure, when Hobbs came out, what was that? 2008?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people discovered them on them, and they pretty much shifted the whole genre into that style.
And
Kind of
good for
like
them,
what,
but you guys were doing it quite a bit earlier.
yeah. And then kind of like how Korn did back in the, mid to late 90s, where everybody wanted to play those kind of guitars and tune down,
Right.
and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we were kind of like, we just never got that kind of attention for some reason. I don't know why, but we just never got that. I don't.
Right.
Some people, of course, we have some diehard fans that'll be like, "Fuck yeah, Fear Factory did it all," but in the grand scheme of things, a lot of people, even there's bands now that don't really know where it came from, but that are
Definitely.
doing it now because bands that we influenced back then were doing it that they were influenced by. You know what I